Growth requires change, and change is uncomfortable. When we say that we want or desire change, what we often mean is that we want the results of change, but we don't want to put the work in required to manifest that change. We want to eat the fruit from the tree, but we don't want to till the garden. We don't want to put the work in. We want to be comfortable. Change, growth, real growth, doesn't come unless we defeat the desire to be comfortable. Today, we're going to look at the thorn of seeking comfort. A definition of comfort is a state of physical ease and freedom from pain or constraint. When I look at my own life, I got into my career of choice to be a math teacher. As I was teaching, I found things that made my job easier using technology and the like. It made my job easier, made it more efficient. Unfortunately, I didn't really use the time that I saved being more efficient to being better at what I did. Over time, other requirements, family, children, etc., these things began to take time as well. As my family grew, as my responsibilities grew, I always focused more so on how to get into a routine, how to be comfortable, but not really trying to be better at the responsibilities that I had. Because I was always trying to find that status quo or trying to keep the status quo, I did not take the time to improve myself. And when it came to doing things important like building God's kingdom, I pretty much just abandoned that. And one of the things that I also discovered is that over time, my other skills, the skills that I did have that I didn't bother to maintain or improve, actually got worse because I was used to being in this comfort zone. And I didn't even realize that I was losing my skills until they were actually tested. My skills as a musician, I used to play the keyboard. I don't play it as well as I used to, and that's because I don't put as much time putting the practice in. Even my health and my physical fitness has actually deteriorated to a significant level. And because I was so used to being comfortable, I wasn't even aware because I was always feeling comfortable. So, why do we desire comfort? Well, as animals, we have a natural tendency to minimize the energy expenditure to maintain life, especially when resources are scarce. We seek to make things easier, usually for the sake of efficiency. For example, using a hammer for a nail instead of using your bare hands, or using a chainsaw instead of a handsaw, or a power screwdriver instead of a handheld screwdriver. In addition to that, we also look to establish routines to make our days more efficient. The problem is that this can lead to a bit of a slippery slope. In our desire for shortcuts and taking the easy way out, the desire for efficiency develops into a mindset of ease. Society also plays into this desire and further conditions us to believe that comfort and ease is what we should strive for. It's what we actually deserve. There's very little in society that actually drives us to improve ourselves as people. So when you have this internal tendency combined or coupled with the external stimulus, this only increases the desire for the easy life. So why do I consider seeking comfort a thorn? Well, one, it's because, first of all, we can become our own idol. Seeking comfort is rooted in self. It's a selfish act. Instead of dying to ourselves, we end up living for ourselves. I think of the scripture in Romans chapter 8, verse 13. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, they are the sons of God. Another problem with seeking comfort is that the focus on ease, the focus on comfort will lead us to avoid exertion. It leads us to avoid effort, and also it leads us to avoid boundaries. Remember that part of the definition of pain is freedom from constraint. That's freedom from boundaries. It's freedom from pain. And oftentimes, going out of our comfort zone is going to be painful. It doesn't feel good. And having boundaries doesn't feel good as well. And so seeking ease may cause us to violate or cross some of those boundaries that we should have set for ourselves. It's easier, for example, to see the donut and eat it than it is to see the donut, resist the temptation to eat it, and walk away. It's easier to look at Facebook or Twitter for information than to do the actual research for yourself or actually doing anything productive for that matter. Our decisions will be based on what makes us feel good, what is easy, not on what is good for us, and more importantly, what's good for God's kingdom. Seeking comfort can also make us content to be mediocre or average, not excellence. It leads us to the false thinking of seeking happiness instead of seeking joy. Another reason is that our decisions are based on what makes us feel good and what's easy, not necessarily what's good for us, or more importantly, what God requires of us. It can weaken us in a lot of ways as well. What can happen is atrophy begins to set in, and it leads to things like laziness, which can make it more difficult to come out of the comfort zone, as well as the wasting away of any dreams and desires that you may have. It leads to an erosion of our passion for God and for serving others. Because seeking comfort is rooted in self, we're more concerned with making things easier for ourselves than we are trying to serve others and work for the benefit of other people. The more we give into comfort, the harder it becomes to initiate change. So, how do we combat and defeat the desire to seek comfort and ease? Check out the next video and we'll get into that.